WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It was a beautiful hop, skip, and a jump down the mountain on Monday morning after a Raven victory. Not often we get to say that at the Confluence. Pittsburgh is her adopted hometown, and she covers all things National Football League for the NFL Network. It's always good to catch up, not just with Aditi Kinkhabwala, but also to eat Mr. Rooney's cookies in the press box while I do it. She joins us now from Pittsburgh, where there is the aftermath. And look, Aditi, I know you travel around, but you hear all the noise in Pittsburgh. I would think it's noisy there in a way it hasn't been. And when I talk to the Steelers beat writers and they say, Tomlin's never had a losing season here, I'm like, wow. And boy, this doesn't smell good right now, does it?
First, I don't even know where to start. So can we start with, this is not my adopted hometown. This is just a place I live. Okay? Can we go there? One. Two, yes, it is very loud on talk radio. It's loud in the media rooms. You know where it's not loud? In that locker room. It's almost as if there is, I don't know whether to call it a shell shock. I don't know whether to call it a resignation. But this is not how you would expect a team to respond to being 1-2-1. A team that really has felt for the last 3 years like it was on the cusp of a Super Bowl. You certainly don't think that they should be sitting here kind of as, I don't want to say mellow. It's not that they're mellow, but it's just a lot of talk. Yeah, things have to change. Defensive end at Cam Hayward, the defensive captain, said, things have to change. Something's got to change. Okay, what has to change? No answers. Quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, 2 weeks ago, he said it's gut check time. I asked him at the time, I said, what can change? Do you need to work more? Do you need to throw a little bit more with your receivers? He laughed. He said, no, that's not what it's about. It's about accountability to each other. Okay, well, where's that gotten you in 2 weeks?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of smart people in this league, and you and I run around and we talk about why a guy makes $20 million or $15 million, or guys playing for contracts, and the Le'Veon Bell thing is just a bright light shined, and now after Earl Thomas, on what the money's about, what the guaranteed money's about. But more than that, and we've seen this here in Baltimore, you take Yanda away from the Ravens, you take Jimmy Smith away from the Ravens, you take their good players away, Brandon Williams in the middle of the year last year, and we stink. And when you take Ryan Shazier and Le'Veon Bell away, if you would have told me last year that they wouldn't play at all this year, I'd say, well, do you have to pay them? Yeah, well, if it's a $25 million cap number, they're probably not going to be a very good football team if those guys don't suit up 16 games, and that's where we are. And, there's the hangover of all of the emotional part of Ryan Shazier and what it means on the football team and how you replace that guy. But I think the Bell thing was really a gut punch to them, because I don't think anybody there thought he wasn't going to play.
Well, and there's an emotional piece to it. Because from the time that there was talk that he could be tagged again. Obviously both sides were trying to negotiate a deal, but from the time that everybody knew that this was out here, okay, if they can't get a deal, then they will tag him, Bell had pretty much said that he'd follow the same blueprint that he followed from a year ago. And then to have what was said, you can't say that it's not being taken personally.
Well, I mean, I've never heard anything like what came out of that locker room that day, the week the season started. I mean, I was out on Twitter looking and following, you guys and Ed Bouchette and a bunch of people up there. I'm like, I've never been in a locker where players have done that to another player, which really says it is personal. Like, we really don't like this guy, but we need him. Sort of, kind of.
No, but let me disagree here. There's not one person in that locker room that doesn't feel that Le'Veon Bell should get as much money as he can possibly get. They all feel that he is an otherworldly player and that he is worthy of as much as is out there. But they also acknowledge that these are the rules of the CBA. This is the way that it has been set up. And at this point, staying away is simply hurting the team and not necessarily affecting anything for him other than his guarantee that he can be healthy at the end of the year.
Well, Billick would always say there's a time for pay and a time for play. This ain't the time for pay. You know what I mean? Like, right. You got to figure that part of it out.
That's the world we're in, Nestor, right? I mean, there used to be that demarcation, but the world is a little bit different today.
Well, I don't know how it's going to be different for the Steelers moving forward. I mean, they only have 3 more games and we see them again. I didn't realize the bye is sort of sandwiched into October for them. Atlanta, Cincinnati, and Cleveland, and we go at it again. I'm wondering what they're going to look like. Will they be 4-2-1? Will they rally in the way they always do? And look, the Patriots and the Steelers are notorious slow starters, and we had started to shovel the dirt on the casket for the Patriots last week, and they came back with an exclamation mark. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Steelers roll off 3 wins here.
I mean, it's definitely a possibility. There's a ton of talent on this team, but right now there are a lot of messes here. And I don't know. I've covered this rivalry for 6 years now. I don't know that there was ever any one night where it was so jarring to see the difference in the way the two clubs were coached. The Ravens were about as disciplined, as detailed, as focused, as fired up as a team could be. And the Steelers were the complete opposite of that. I mean, there was a point in the Sunday night game when the Steelers were down 14-0. They come out, it's their ensuing drive after that 14-0, and the first play is a penalty. And this is the most penalized team in all of football.
Well, the third down...
Go ahead.
Third down inaccuracy, to me, even when the game was 17-14, 20-14, we've seen the ending of that book, right? Roethlisberger makes a play, there's a tight end, somebody misses a tackle, there's a penalty, there's a face mask. Next thing you know, boom, it's 21-20, and all the sins have been washed away on one drive. I've sat in that seat waiting for that. It didn't happen on Sunday night. It didn't look like it came close to happening, honestly.
I mean, look, Joe Flacco said it was Joe Flacco effectively said it was an easy night. This team just doesn't have the soul that we know the Pittsburgh Steelers to have.
Let's talk about the Ravens on the other side of this. I don't think you can stay. You have to be impressed by everything that's happened here, from Chicken Little and the sky is falling and Harbaugh hasn't made the playoffs and Flacco's over the hill and we're going to draft a quarterback. All that went on in the offseason kind of got washed away right around June, and I know you were down during that period of time where Joe was throwing the ball pretty well and they had this complement of wide receivers that you at least said, well, maybe these are the best guys that have been on the field. And then throughout August it was that way, and now we're into October, and this looks like a pretty good football team right now, Aditi.
You know what? There is an array of weapons for Joe Flacco to work with. I cannot remember the last time that he had this many varied pass catchers. What I mean by that is all these guys do different things really well. So it's hard to defend them because you're defending different people in every way, different skill sets, whether it's a guy that's really physical like Crabtree or it's a burner like John Brown. So he's got all of this around him, and he's using all of it. It's not as if he's just dependent on one guy. He's using his tight ends. He's using all 3 receivers. He's using multiple running backs. And Flacco himself, I know on Sunday night, he said that he's not really throwing the ball that differently. No, he really is. He's healthy. And I don't know whether this is just something that we love to talk about. I know when I was down there during training camp, people said absolutely the drafting of Lamar Jackson fired him up a little bit. But Flacco looks like a new guy, like a different guy. And whether it's the better team around him, whether it's the drafting of Lamar Jackson, whether it's just simply being healthy, whatever it is, it's working. You knew this defense was great. Clearly, this defense, Wink Martindale is speaking to this defense. And I've always had a ton of respect for John Harbaugh. I just really believe in who he is as a coach.
Well, and
It's fun. It's fun to see the Ravens playing this well. It's fun to see the Bengals play this well. Everybody kind of was ready to say that the Steelers were the team to beat in the division, and they're in the basement right now with the Browns.
Well, this thing's got balanced out. Aditi Kinkhabwala joining us here from NFL Network. You can follow her at Kinkhabwala out on Twitter, and tens of thousands do as well. And we're getting ready for Cleveland. This is not, we're just going to go in there and roll over and just come out with a 20-point win like the old days in Cleveland. Flacco has struggled there. I think the Ravens have struggled there, even in the bad years for the Browns. But this is a sort of a woke Browns operation that should have stolen another game on Sunday. Had the game won, I felt twice late in the afternoon, is when you and I were talking, and then they wind up squandering it and browning it, as it were. But on a week-by-week basis, I'm not looking at that and saying we're looking forward to going to Cleveland this week as the second of 3 in a row on the road.
This is a legitimate defense over in Cleveland. The Browns are playing really good defense. Myles Garrett is a guy, I hate to be this person that anoints somebody in his second year in the league, but if he stays healthy, his body, his mindset, his speed, everything about the way that he approaches the game, I mean, he is one of those talents we will still be talking about a dozen years from now. He is something else. That defense is very aggressive. They're playing really well, and you know, Todd Haley's in his element here. He's got a bunch of guys that he really likes, and he has a lot of talent on that side of the ball, too.
Well, and then there's also the Baker Mayfield thing. Like, we would have said, well, will he be playing by the time the Ravens get there in Week 5? Maybe, how would Tyrod go? But how quickly this has happened, and we saw it with Dak Prescott a couple years ago. We saw it with Deshaun Watson last year when you're the number 1 overall pick, and they pretty much spend all of Hard Knocks saying, we're not going to see a lot of you, and then in Week 3 you're already the starter and you're winning football games and giving the team a chance to win. But he sure is a gunslinger. He's going to throw his share of picks, and against a team like the Ravens, they're going to make him pay for those picks.
Well, that's for sure. And this line still is not completely settled in. You know, it's a little bit unfair. That Thursday night game that took out Tyrod Taylor, the line was just absolutely porous at the start of the game. It was almost as if you could see why Baker Mayfield couldn't be out there yet. I mean, he would have died, basically. So the line was struggling in every way. Tyrod Taylor gets hurt. The line does make a few adjustments, and the Jets just didn't pressure the same way once Mayfield was in. So that's still something they need to work on. I actually spoke to a member of that organization earlier today, Nestor, and I was told that there were 20 mental errors on offense. The Browns really do feel as if they have cost themselves all 4 or 3 of these 4 games. They did win the 1, but basically that they've beaten themselves, not that they have been beaten. They have to clean a lot of that up. But there is a lot of confidence there, and it's not without cause. It's not without reason.
I stand fully corrected. She only lives in Pittsburgh. She has not adopted it. Aditi Kinkhabwala joining us here from NFL Network. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Sporticulture. We have the beautiful flowers in here. You can ship them anywhere NFL fans go. Right here in Maryland, right out on the west side. My man Court's got it there. Sporticulture.com. And you can ship them even to Steelers fans in defeat. Wednesday night, we'll be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry and for There Goes My Hero and for blood cancer patients everywhere trying to save some lives and give it a spit, along with Ravens wide receiver Willie Snead and tight end Nick Boyle. We'll be doing that at Buffalo Wild Wings in Bel Air. Come on out, have some wings, have a burger, watch the Yankees get eliminated, watch the Caps hoist the banner. It's Wednesday night. Willie Snead, Nick Boyle, come on out, get swabbed for the Bone Marrow Registry. Let's talk some Ravens football and have some fun during Cleveland week here. It's at Buffalo Wild Wings at the festival in Bel Air. Aditi Kinkhabwala is our guest. You can find her out on Twitter at Kinkhabwala, as well as on NFL Network, running around this crazy NFC or AFC North, I should say. Cincinnati, you said it's fun seeing them be good again. Boy, that offensive line was no good last year in trying to put that thing together. And I know Andy Dalton, everybody makes fun of him until I get on another plane out of Cincinnati and come home again after the Bengals have beaten the Ravens. They've had Joe Flacco's number. Marvin defensively, no matter who the DC is, going back to 11 years ago when it started. I would say for the Ravens beating the Bengals is something, and that has become something we're circling. But all of these teams have sort of leveled out in a way that we haven't seen in recent times. But the Bengals are pretty good, and they stole a game on Sunday, too, that very easily came one play away from them being 2-2.
Well, but Andy Dalton came up with some key fourth down conversions, and clearly offensive coordinator Bill Lazor is having the time in the offseason to put in his offense as opposed to just being a midseason or early season, transition to that has made a real difference. And you can see how A.J. Green really likes playing with Dalton. It's very sad what happened to Tyler Eifert, though, that's for sure. And they were down to, I don't know who was going to play running back for them. Everybody got hurt Sunday, But again, what I'm saying is it's fun when the division is really competitive. It's fun when Terrell Suggs said on Sunday night it's the best division in football, and you sort of feel like it really is kind of up for grabs. Because again, as much as we're sort of knocking the Steelers right now, it is still the Steelers, and they can still turn things around. I mean, there was a few years ago where they started 0-4, and they somehow managed to finish 8-8.
Well, I think perception becomes reality. I mean, nobody really believes the Dolphins, the Bills, and the Jets are making the playoffs. So therefore, there's one checkbox. In the West, no one really believes the Raiders or anything, and I think the Chargers and the Broncos are always an acquired taste, especially the Broncos at this point. And I think everybody anoints the Chiefs, but you see the separation. In the North, I don't know. I wouldn't bet against Cleveland right now. I really wouldn't with Mayfield and the way that defense is played, because that defense is never going to be an easy out. You're going to have to go to Cleveland with a lunch pail in a way that you haven't before, and I think that's going to matter in November and December.
I think you're completely correct. What's sort of frustrating is how much of the division schedule is front-loaded for everyone. You'd like to see the team sort of playing their best when they're playing in the division.
Well, the Ravens could wake up, Monday morning, 4-1, having been done now on the road in the division, and the leaves haven't even changed yet. So that would be a really nice place to be. And the Ravens are in the midst of this crazy road run right now. Aditi, always great to have you on. Thanks for making some time to visit with us. It's always good to bump into you. And I'm sure, as I always say to all the national people, when we stink and we're not making the playoffs, I never see you. But when the Ravens are 3-1 here at the quarter pole, I start to see folks like you. So the more the national folks I see, the better I know the Ravens are doing.
Well, I terribly appreciate it. Thank you so much, Nestor.
See you soon. Aditi Kinkhabwala joining us here. She is a Kinkhabwala NFL Network, and she's running around with the AFC North and always there in Pittsburgh. Following the Steelers, always in Owings Mills, too. We see her around, and this is a good year to be following the AFC North at NFL Network. So we're all into it. This week's Cleveland week around here. We got a live show on Wednesday night. Reminder to everyone out there that Bill Cole and Cole Roofing are sponsoring our charity and community series. If you have a good story to tell, like the John W. Brick Foundation 5K run next week, or the Flip Flop Festivus that I attended last week, we've been telling some great stories around here. If you have one of those, email it to me. I'd love to tell your story on the air, nasty@WNST.net. And you can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and telling good stories throughout Baltimore, because someone needs to do it, so I elect me. King Discount Liquors is there with the lottery beer, booze, and your lottery headquarters as well. Make sure you get out to Pulaski Highway and give the King a ring. I took some pizza pie from Pizza John's by King Discount Liquors last week out on Pulaski Highway. Made everybody happy out there. Paul King loves him some Pizza John's. So the staff was happy, and I wound up getting a bottle of Malbec out of it. So not a bad deal. King Discount Liquors, our sponsor for 2 decades now. Get on out to Rosedale and give the King a ring. Busy week around here as we head off to Cleveland. Luke will be out in Owings Mills. We're also monitoring some baseball. The Terps at the Big House this week in Michigan. The Caps raising the banner. Fun times around here as fall sets, and the Ravens are 3-1. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.